No Time to Die, directed by Cary Joji Fukunaga, is the latest and final Daniel Craig James Bond movie. James Bond is in retirement in this movie. It takes place right after the Spectre movie from a couple years ago, and it tells the story of Bond getting back into the swing of things because an old friend Felix shows up and lures him back in because some enemies have new, more dangerous technology than they've ever had before. Now, No Time to Die wasn't really on my highest anticipated list this year because up until this point I had never seen a James Bond movie, but I took it upon myself to watch all the James Bond movies starring Daniel Craig leading up to No Time to Die, and outside of Quantum of Solace, which I didn't see, I was very impressed with everything that I saw. Daniel Craig is just amazing at this character, and it's so crazy to see his growth through the years and how just dedicated he was to this role. It's just amazing everything I've seen with this movie, from Casino Royale all the way up to now. It's stunning what this movie has culminated to, and it's nowhere near certain franchises like Marvel, let's say, but if you took that away, this is definitely one of the few franchises that has strung along a bunch of movies together that is very impactful. And I think Daniel Craig does an amazing job in this movie. He is so captivating. All the stunts that he does is just great. And because he's done this character so long, he knows exactly what he needs to bring in every scene, and I just thought he was mesmerizing throughout most of the movie. Madeline, who ends up being kind of the love interest from this movie that bleeds over from Spectre into this movie, is back, and I did like her in this movie. I think she's a good actress, and I think she has good chemistry with Daniel Craig as James Bond. Maybe not as much as previous people, like more like Vesper, let's say, in Casino Royale. I think that's the best love interest, or at least partner, that he's had. But nevertheless, I thought Madeline did a really good job. I thought the character was really interesting, and I think with some weird loose ends, they could have done better with her in this story, but she was not a negative at all in this movie for me personally. However, one of my bigger negatives with this movie is Rami Malek. Rami Malek plays the bigger villain in this movie, and it's not his acting that's the problem. He does a fine job, and he's really not given a lot of screen time, so I can't really necessarily say that any of his character development that is not, fully, gone through in the movie, that is, like, complete, or, like, that just seems, coherent. Like, that's not his fault. He's just doing what the director's telling him to do. He's just doing what the script tells him to do. And unfortunately for James Bond, his last outing, Daniel Craig as James Bond, the script really lets him down in this one, it feels like. So what hurts about this movie the most is that the weapon itself isn't a terrible thing, although there are a lot of plot holes with the weapon. It's like nanobots that kind of like latch into your bloodstream, and then like mixed with certain DNA and certain codes on computers and stuff like that, the body just shuts down. The nanobites go straight for the specific type of like genetics that people have in them, and it's a really cool thing to see, but like there are some glaring problems with that at times throughout the entire movie that I just found to be head scratching. And why the villain even wants this nanotech out there and to kind of like rule the world in a way, or at least get vengeance on people, like, it's really unclear. Rami Malek's character development is so unclear, it's so underdeveloped, and it's probably one of the worst ones that Daniel Craig has had. I mean, if you're comparing it to people like Lashif and Casino Royale, like, Lashif blows Rami Malek's character out the water. It's not even a competition. And that really sucks because this is supposed to be Daniel Craig's final movie as James Bond. And that's just a really disappointing thing to have in your movie. Lashana Lynch is also in this movie. She plays Naomie, or better in this movie referred to as the new 007, because James Bond was retired. They had to replace the 007 agent, and she is one of them. And I think that there is some good banter and there is some good stuff involving her in this movie with James Bond. But as an overall arching character in this movie, I don't think she really fits the story very well. I think she's very shoehorned in at times, and I just think that they could have cut down a lot of stuff in this movie involving her for a shorter runtime and probably cleaned up some more stuff along villain character development. And that's really where they needed to work on the most, because instead of having her being introduced and being pushed down our throats really hard, we then have a underwhelming ending of the movie with Rami Malek kind of just like sitting there, and then like you're just kind of like, oh, this is not going well whatsoever. And here's a big example of why I keep going back to this underdeveloped character for the villain. Rami Malek is really not introduced in this movie up until like about halfway through. And we've discussed before, when you have a lack of a villain presence in this movie or in any movie, it hurts it. Like, there is no big threat there. Like, there is no knowing of a big threat. You barely see them throughout, and it just becomes underwhelming. And I find that the scriptwriters just needed to do a better job there. And honestly, what makes this movie really, really work, outside of its lacking in character development and storyline plot holes, is the stunning camera work. It's just so gorgeous to look at. Everything practical in this movie is insane to me. There's so many stunts involving cars and falling off ledges, and long take shootouts in hallways, and just Daniel Craig just being a badass. There's an awesome Cuba scene in the middle of the movie that I just went, wow, that was really cool. And there was a lot of fun stuff throughout there. That part helps the movie more than what the actual script ends up doing with the majority of this movie. So in the end, is No Time to Die the great swan song for Daniel Craig going out as James Bond? Yes and no, because Daniel Craig is great in the movie, and I think he's awesome in all the movies that he's in, good or bad, like, you know, script-wise and everything like that. Like, he is great as James Bond. But the script doesn't service him very well. It's lacking in a lot of places. It's a little disappointing. And as I said, the technical aspects of this movie and him acting in this movie and what he does best as James Bond is what really uplifts the entire thing. This movie is way more of a character study, I will say. At points, there are some slow burn parts kind of to this, so it does kind of extend its runtime maybe a little too much more than it should. But nevertheless, when you finally get to see the action and you get to see everything on screen, that part is worth the wait alone. I'm going to give No Time to Die 3.5 stars. Thank you guys so much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. On this channel, you can also find me on the Andrew Paul Show. That's on Spotify, Apple Music, and then Anchor. That also leads to other outlets wherever you get your podcasts from. I talk about wrestling there, and I've been saying I've been talking about movies. Haven't really talked about movies on there in a little bit, but, you know, life's a little busy right now, especially in this month. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all next time.